In 1976, a British wine merchant in Paris organized a pivotal wine tasting event.
He invited 9 of France's top wine experts, including critics and sommeliers, to participate. All wine samples were hidden, ensuring a truly blind tasting. Experts meticulously evaluated and scored each wine. When the wine identities were revealed, the room fell silent in disbelief at the results. California wines, previously dismissed by European connoisseurs, secured first place in both red and white categories. French experts publicly ranked American wine above their own, causing outrage. One judge demanded his ballot back, and the French press refused to cover it. Time magazine eventually reported on the event, forever changing the global wine industry. A tiny American insect arrived in Europe in the 19th century, decimating 2/3 of all European vineyards within 2 decades.
The method Europeans used to save their wine was so unusual, many producers still avoid discussing it.
A 1945 wine bottle can fetch $500,000 today, yet many would find its contents unpalatable.
A classification created by Napoleon's officials in 1855 still dictates which wines are worth thousands and which are merely $20. Remarkably, in over 170 years, this classification has remained virtually unaltered. How did this beverage, once just fermented wildberry juice in a Caucasus clay pot 8,000 years ago, evolve into such a phenomenon? In 2007, Armenian archaeologists unearthed a wooden wine press, clay vessels, and dried grape seeds in the Areni cave. Analysis confirmed wine production here around 6000 BC, marking it as Earth's oldest known winemaking facility. However, Georgian discoveries suggest winemaking began 8,000 years ago, when humans first transitioned from nomadic to settled lifestyles. Wine was an accident. Wild grapes are only sweet externally. Their bitter, astringent juice makes them nearly inedible raw. Left in the sun, grapes ferment naturally as yeast converts sugar to alcohol. Someone tasted this, felt its effects, and intentionally replicated it. That anonymous person, whose name we'll never know, ignited a global industry now worth $500 billion annually. Caucasian winemakers cultivated grapes, selecting and nurturing vines for optimal juice. This intuitive breeding mirrored ancient agricultural practices. Georgia continues to produce wine using 8,000-year-old Qvevri clay vessels, maintaining ancient traditions.
Entomologio. UNESCO recognized this ancient Qvevri technique. The tradition has survived centuries of invasions.
Wine remained regional until 2 civilizations adopted it, spreading its influence across the known world.
Ancient Greeks revered wine so deeply they created Dionysus, the god of ecstasy and liberation. He was not merely the god of drunkenness. His cult offered a divine connection, becoming popular. Dionysian mysteries centered on wine paved the way for theater, carnival, and modern celebrations. Greeks diluted their wine, considering undiluted consumption barbaric. Symposia were not just parties, but social forums for philosophy, politics, and art. Plato and Socrates hosted symposia, where many foundational Western ideas were first debated over diluted wine. Rome adopted and vastly expanded Greek wine culture. By the 1st century AD, the Roman Empire produced wine from Spain to Syria. Roman legionaries received posca, a mix of sour wine and water as rations, safer than plain water. Some Roman-planted vineyards, like Germany's Moselle, still produce wine today. They're planted 2,000 years ago. Vineyards endured the fall of Rome, barbarian invasions, plagues, and 2 world wars. Grapevines are incredibly resilient. Rome unknowingly poisoned itself. They stored wine in lead vessels and added lead acetate, a sweet substance called sapa, which slowly accumulated. Chronic lead poisoning caused irritability, impaired judgment, infertility, and mental decline. The Roman elite, who consumed the most, suffered the most. This poisoning may explain later emperors' erratic behavior. Rome unknowingly consumed its favorite drink, leading to its own decline. With Rome's fall and Europe's dark ages, winemaking nearly vanished. Vineyards overgrew, trade collapsed, and crucial knowledge faded. The Church saved wine. Christianity made wine central to the Eucharist. Without wine, monasteries needed wine, so they produced it themselves. Monastic vineyards became guardians of winemaking knowledge during Europe's decline. Burgundy, now home to the world's priciest wines, was shaped by Cistercian monks in the 12th–13th centuries. They observed ancient Greeks revered wine so deeply they created Dionysus, the god of ecstasy and liberation. He was not merely the god of drunkenness. This concept, later called terroir, is the foundation of global wine classification. The monks, lacking centuries of observations, formed Burgundy's map, still used today. Some plots identified 800 years ago now yield wines worth tens of thousands per bottle. Romanée-Conti, a tiny Burgundian vineyard, produces 6,000 bottles annually, averaging $30,000 each. This immense value stems from a few monks 800 years ago, who recognized and marked a unique plot producing extraordinary wine.
Then, the insect arrived. In 1863, French vineyard owners observed strange vine.
The problem spread rapidly to neighboring vineyards, then farther. Nobody understood why, blaming weather, soil, or poor cultivation.
The grim truth. A microscopic aphid, less than a millimeter long, arrived from America on a trading ship, later named Phylloxera.
Existing for millennia in North America, American grapevines had evolved resistance. European vines, however, had no defense. Phylloxera attacked roots underground. By the time growers noticed, the vines were doomed. The insect spread uncontrollably. By the 1880s, Phylloxera devastated vineyards across France, Spain, Italy, Germany, and Austria. With Rome's fall and Europe's dark ages, winemaking nearly vanished. Vineyards overgrew, trade collapsed, and crucial knowledge faded.
The French government offered a massive 300,000 gold franc reward for a solution, but it remained unclaimed for 2 decades.
Desperate winemakers tried everything: flooding vineyards, burying toads, even dousing soil with kerosene.
A French scientist proposed a radical, initially dismissed solution: grafting European grapevines onto American rootstocks.
American roots were phylloxera resistant due to millennia of coevolution. European vines, meanwhile, carried centuries of selective breeding for desired flavors. Combining them created a resilient vine. It worked, but this solution came with an unspoken consequence winemakers still prefer not to discuss. Today, nearly all European wine, from France to Germany, grows on American roots. America saved European wine.
In 1855, a historical leader ordered a regional trade organization to classify local wines for a grand.
The commission spent months researching market prices. The rankings were based on price, not quality, creating a list of 61 chateaux in 5 categories.
Despite wars, revolutions, and agricultural changes, the list remained. In 170 years,
this sole change highlights the classification's power. It still dictates prices. A first growth sells for $1,000. This isn't hyperbole. It's the literal reality of how the Bordeaux wine market still operates today.
While the 1855 classification shows the past's power, a prominent wine critic illustrates how one man, with
In 1978, a wine critic, an American lawyer,
With an exceptional palate, Parker's first major success came with the 1982 Bordeaux. While European experts dismissed it, years later the critic was proven right, and his reputation skyrocketed. By the 1990s, his scores literally dictated global wine prices.
a wine scoring 95 points or higher would instantly multiply in value, sometimes overnight, immediately after his review was published.
Winemakers began altering their styles to match the critic's preferences. He favored concentrated, dark, powerful wines. Entire regions reshaped centuries-old traditions for one critic's high score. This Parkerization became one man, with a 0 to 100 scale, wielded unprecedented influence, forever altering the world's wine taste, perhaps permanently. Before Parker and the Judgment of Paris, winemaking faced a persistent historical problem: widespread counterfeiting. Until the 20th century, the vast majority of wine sold in Europe was entirely counterfeit, not just slightly adulterated. Wine was diluted with water, colored with elderberry juice, and sweetened with lead acetate, of the same substance that poison. Sugar was added for alcohol, acids for aging flavor, and cheap southern wine was blended with expensive northern wine, then sold under false labels. A Bordeaux bottle might contain Spanish or Algerian wine, or no French wine at all. Everyone knew this widespread deception was happening.
The issue was lack of proof and no prohibitive laws.
France's first serious law protecting wine's geographical origin wasn't passed until 1935.
40 years after Phylloxera, a regional appellation system was created to combat fraud. It guarantees that a specific wine region is truly that region.
Protecting geographical names became a crucial regulatory milestone in food industry history.
Today, you can generally trust a wine bottle's label. While 21st century counterfeit scandals still occur, they are
returning to 1976, where a key organizer, 9 French experts, and sealed bottles set the stage for history.
The tasting, known as the Judgment of Paris, saw California wines, Stag's Leap and Château Mouton win first place in both red and white categories. Compliments. Initially, the French press was silent. Only Time magazine reported. Later, French newspapers questioned that the criticism was ironic. The judges were France's own finest wine experts, making their expertise undeniable. Repeated tastings saw Californians win repeatedly. The Judgment of Paris shattered France's monopoly on defining great wine.
Decades later, world-class winemaking flourished in Australia, New Zealand, Chile, Argentina, and South Africa.
The belief that only France made great wine died in Paris in 1976, buried by the very French experts who from an ancient cave to a Greek symposium, and a Burgundian monastery to a Maryland newsletter, unseen.
Phylloxera, arriving unknowingly from America, completely transformed European winemaking.
Wine endured Rome's fall, medieval plagues, Napoleonic wars, and American insect invasion, prohibition. Today, the global wine market is valued at $500 billion annually, with approximately 27 billion bottles produced worldwide each year. In the last 2 decades, China has become one of Earth's top 5 wine producers, a development that no longer surprises anyone.
Georgia, wine's 8,000-year-old birthplace, still uses traditional Qvevri vessels. Its wines are now served in top.
The $500,000 1945 bottle is a witness to history, sealed during WW2. Its